I think I'll start by trying to figure out how the bottom piece and the side pieces go together for the fuselage, and then put the top piece on. Start with those, and then once I have that structure, then work on the front airfoil and the back airfoil. After that, probably work on all the cockpit parts. So I started laying out where some of these pieces are going to go. I'm kind of figuring this out as I go, so there'll be some backtracking and mistakes made, and so I'll just pause and document significant milestones. So here's the front spoiler, the nose, which will sit up here and be slanted down, and then the side pieces. Got a couple of wheel pieces. Got some more wheels here, and got the tail fin area there, the back plate. I'm thinking that probably the best approach here is going to be to put a square frame at this end, and then probably at this end. The sides don't need to be real strong. The top and bottom do, because the kids will be sitting on it and possibly climbing on it. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe like a 2x4 frame, kind of frame that, and then like a U shape here, because the kids have to be able to sit with their legs going that way, and then maybe another one up here for strength. In order to figure out the spacing here, I set the top piece on top of the bottom piece, lined them up horizontally, and I just kind of traced where the driver opening is, and then that way I get a good indication of where the chair will actually be with regards to the bottom piece. Then that'll help me figure out the positioning of these pieces, and then the frame. I'm thinking maybe just have a couple of 2x4s stretching down there, then mount the back plate onto there. Then I have some casters which I want to put on under it so that we can move it around, and those could go 2 in that corner and 2 up there. The thing of it is, though, that the opening, the driver's seat opening, is actually wider. At one point I widened the driver opening. Actually, the chair can sit above this, I guess, or kind of drop down in between. That might be okay. Okay, so we got the frame connected to the bottom. This is upside down at the moment. And the next step, I think I'm going to put some casters in the corners of where the frame is, and then this thing can roll. The casters will be holding the main weight, and then there will be fake wheels. Okay, so the frame is attached to the bottom piece. I got casters on, so this thing can be moved around a little bit. It's not meant to drive, but it can be moved around a little bit. And I guess the next step would be to start building up the sides. And then I think I need to make the top detachable, because the hole for the driver is probably not big enough to get in. I'm not quite sure. But the seat will be kind of in this area here, and then the kids' legs will shoot out the front there, and it actually goes beyond that. This is just where the bottom piece ends. So for the side pieces, I'm just going to use a short piece of 2x2, and one there, one over there, and then the side pieces will just be mounted like that and like that, and that's these surfaces right here, and then there'll be a decorative one on top of that. Okay, so I got a short piece of 2x2 attached there, and then that's going to attach onto the bottom piece. So that'll go like that, that'll go like that, and those will be the side areas right there and there. By the way, I'm using screws at this point because I'm not sure if this is going to work this way, and I want to be able to undo it afterwards. If I had confidence this was going to work like this, then I could have glued it. But with screws, it's easy to take apart and change it. Okay, I've attached kind of a U frame made out of 2x4s onto the end piece here. This will just kind of go on the end, and then the side chassis pieces will go on here, and the tail fin, I guess, will probably mount onto the bottom there. And the top piece will just kind of be held by these corners. That's probably enough. It doesn't need to be real strong. So now what I've done is attach the 2 side pieces to the back plate, This is probably just temporary because I probably have to take it off again, but it might not be. I've left it open at the front just for now. So now basically I have a kind of the middle layer, and what I can do is set that on top of the bottom piece and then set the top piece on it to align those upright side pieces. Okay, so now I dropped those side pieces on top of the bottom frame, and now I'm just not exactly sure where the front is going to line up. I'm not entirely sure of the spacing on the back, so I'm not going to fasten this yet, but I am going to set it here, and then that way I can put the top on temporarily. Okay, so now I've dropped the top piece on, just set it on there loosely just to see how it's going to fit. I'm going to want these corners to line up because that's where the nose will slope down from. So that point actually kind of determines the rest of the spacing. So at the side, these points are not right perpendicular to each other. That's fine because there's going to be kind of a curved decorative piece. It's got kind of a little swoop on it. That'll be okay there, and these surfaces do need to be one on top of another though. So the side piece is going to go here and then here. I'll show it from the other side. And the back, okay, so it looks like this does line up fairly close. I wasn't sure if I was going to have a gap there or not. Okay, so now checking the positioning of the side pieces. Let's see, this one will kind of go in here like that, and this one will go kind of like that, and then the same on the left. So, but this should sit right on top. Oop, right there, right there. Okay, so that's kind of how the side will look, except like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a decorative piece there and across the top also. So that's the side structure, and then this just stays open, I guess. I could greeble that a little bit, I guess, but I mean, it's supposed to be an air vent anyway. That's how the model was. It just opened right there. So, yeah, coming along so far. Okay. Now, one complication I have is the original model had a narrow fuselage, but I widened this hole enough for a person to get in. However, I did not widen the inner dimension of the fuselage, so originally I was thinking I'd have to cut here and then just move this piece out. However, this is only about 1/8 of an inch thick. I may be able to just kind of bend it, put a spacer down there to hold it in place and bend it, and that'll avoid cutting. So actually I think that'll work out okay. Let's try it. So for the spacing, I think basically I'll just put a piece of 2x4 in here and push it down in there, and then bend out the plywood, like attach it flush to that so it kind of goes like a little bit of a wavy shape to it. Okay, so got some short spacers in there that will push out the sides closer to the opening. I mean, it can be a little bit in, but that's a little bit better. It'll widen the opening for the driver, and yeah, I think that will work. And the seat will go in here. So I guess next I will fasten those blocks in, and then fasten the side pieces onto there, and then we'll have a fuselage, or at least a lower, well, a chassis with side panels. Okay, so I put a cross piece here. This will pull the side pieces back together after they bend out, and they will also be held in place at the bottom. So this just slides down there. Ooh. Okay, just a little creaking sound, I guess. Okay, I think once I attach them down there, it'll be a little bit more stable. Let's do that. Okay, I got it fastened down there. I also fastened it here so you can kind of see that there's a bow out, and that's fine. Gives the driver a little bit more width to work with, and yeah, I think that'll work okay. Okay, starting to lay out the cockpit pieces here. We're going to try some plexiglass around the front part there, and then change over to wood going on the sides, and it goes back down to the point. There's the top piece, kind of like this area here. Let's see how all this fits together. So there's a number of areas where pieces come together at odd angles. The nose is one area. Of course, this engine cover is another area. Those are the two main areas. And because I started with a paper model, it wasn't an issue. Basically, you would just glue or tape the edges together. But with wood that has a real thickness and a weight to it, it's going to be a little bit different. So for example, this nose piece will go down like this, kind of at a weird angle. And then the side piece goes like this. So actually the nose goes a little higher. So what I'm thinking is doing is probably tape together these pieces on the inside seam so that they are sort of connected together, and then maybe run a bead of glue or some type of filling material, glue probably, into the slot there. And once the glue hardens, then it will have the correct shape, the correct angles. The only alternative I could think of was to cut some kind of weird shape bulkhead inside, and that would work also. If I was doing this again, it would be really nice to have that bulkhead shape ahead of time. Just cut out one piece, slap it in there, and then fasten the other parts onto it. However, since this is the 1.0 of this particular design model, I don't have that, and in order to get the thing done with a reasonable effort, I think I'm just going to use the tape and glue approach. So anyway, that's my plan for the nose area and probably for the cockpit area also. So I was actually able to get this partially assembled car into my vehicle without disassembling it. So it turns out I could have glued it and more permanently fastened it together instead of just temporarily using screws. If I had known that, I could have glued it ahead of time. But I think with the screws, it's still going to be solid enough. I'll just leave it. I will not disassemble and put glue in there at this point, because I'm just happy enough to get it on site here. I've got the major pieces here. We've got some assembly work to do on the nose and the cockpit area, and then we'll paint it and greeble it to make it look nice. Always important to remember to lock these casters so the thing doesn't roll away. We're on a little bit of a slope here. I initially had just put a few screws here to hold it in, and of course the caster screws hold the bottom to the frame. But now I'm just putting a few more screws in now that I know that it seems like it's going to work, and it fit in the car, so I didn't need to take it apart. So I'm just securing the bottom to the frame a little bit more, because there may be some weight on the bottom panel and I don't want it coming off of the frame. Ideally the bottom plate would have been above the frame and then gravity would have kept it in place, but I also wanted low clearance to the ground, so I put the plate under the frame instead. The front and back alignment was off a little bit, so I just had to trim off a little bit at the back, and then we'll just move it up to the front here so the things line up here on the corner, the sides. So for the engine cover and cockpit area, just building up, I'm just going to glue and tape layer by layer these pieces. So I started with the bottom layer here, then once that's dry, build the next layer and just use tape to hold them in shape. Hopefully that'll work. That'll at least hold them in place, and then we can add supports or more glue as needed to make it more sturdy. So just continuing to build up. So we got the first layer on there and the glue's dry, took the tape off. Same idea, continuing on here, next layer. So the first layer is dry and reasonably secure. Now I'm putting the second layer on and just tape and glue it, let it dry, and then build some more on there to build up this pattern. So on this back engine cover area, I'm basically having to recut pieces because the pattern didn't quite fit. Basically, I'm still building up one layer at a time. I'm going to leave the top plate attached to the chassis only with a few screws like in these corners and up here. That way we can lift it off if we need to for some reason. I need to adjust where these bottom brackets are going because they were not quite in the right place. The easiest way to do that is just to hoist the whole thing up. I was going to tilt it, but then I forgot that the front airfoil sticks out past the outer edge here, so I should have done that before attaching this thing. So for the seat, I'm just going to take a piece of plywood that was fitted to the inside of the car, put some bubble wrap or foam or something in there, and then cover it with black material.